Well, hey everybody, welcome back. This is Tony. The channel is Tony Talks Card, and I've got a new friend with me here on the channel. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, Tony, good to see you. Good to be here.
Yeah, you too. Mark's Dodgers cards. This is great. This is looking forward to doing our meetup here for the last couple of weeks. We've exchanged some emails back and forth, trying to set up the right time to talk. We're both pretty new to YouTube, I think, and really looking forward to our discussions about teams and who we collect and maybe why we collect. And just thanks for making the time for me too.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really enjoyed watching your channel and yeah, seeing some of your other interviews with people or conversations with people, I would say, and seeing your displays of cards. So yeah, great to be able to talk to you a little bit, get to know you a little more, and a little bit more your collection.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, I won't make you sweat too much. That's not the goal of these types of interviews. I know. Yeah. No interrogations. We're talking about cards. It's all fun with cards. So,
All
um,
fun.
but, but with that, Mark, I know before we jumped on the call, you mentioned you've been on YouTube almost about a year coming up. I want to say this coming May, I think you were saying. So maybe give us a little background on kind of maybe why you started, what your channel is all about, and maybe what you collect primarily.
Yeah, well, as it says from my name, Mark's Dodgers cards. So I collect primarily Dodger cards, but I do other things also. Just background, I've been collecting since I was a kid. I remember the first card I got, it's right here, first vintage card I got. Also, the first single card that I got was from my dad. Took me to a card shop when I was 7, and I also got a couple packs of 1981 Donruss cards. But I've been collecting all through. I collected all through elementary, junior high, high school. Kind of started dropping off a little bit, and then through my 20s and 30s, I sort of picked up things here and there, but didn't really collect too seriously. I had kids. I tried to get them into cards, but it was like my kids are older, a little older, and it was kind of before the recent card explosion. So a lot of their friends weren't collecting, so it didn't really stick in terms of them getting into it. But then, like many people, when the pandemic hit, I went into my boxes and started looking at things, and I realized I really like this stuff and wanted to kind of get back into it. And I guess since 2021, I've been sort of collecting very much more seriously, kind of like back in the day. And yeah, I found the videos on YouTube, started watching different channels, and um, really kind of thought, hey, this is a way to get a better connection with other people in the hobby. It looked like a really good way to do it. And so I ripped the Band-Aid off and put up a video, and got a wonderful welcoming reception. I'm sure you've had this experience, Tony, that people are, you start out, you don't know what to expect, and it's a very welcoming community. So yeah, that was last May, and it's been a great experience.
Cool. Yeah, no, I've had the same experience. I started back in October, so about 6 months or so ago. And you start commenting, you see people, you see kind of what people are into. Some are modern, some vintage, some crazy expensive, some kind of, I would call them kind of junk packs like I collected back in the 80s and 90s. You
Sure.
kind of gravitate towards who you like, but every person I've met has been positive, encouraging. Hey, good job. Leave a like, a thumbs up on the video, leaving a comment. I'm like, you had time to comment on my video? You have all these other people commenting on yours, and do you have a job? How do you have time to comment about little old me on here, first time doing a YouTube video? So it's kind of cool, and it's refreshing to see that. It's virtual, of course. It's not kind of in person, but we can meet up at shows, obviously, and see people in person at some point. But it's cool having a different type of experience collecting. And I think before the internet, you would have to go to your local card shop. You see the owner, you see your friends on the playground sharing cards, and that was cool. Now it's a lot more expansive to different types of collectors and ideas and interest level you wouldn't have had before. So I never had this before, so I'm really been happy about doing it for sure.
Yeah, it's been great. And like, some of the larger channels like are really like go out of their way to like bring up the newer channels. Like, I mean, Orlando A Collector's Dream comments on so many different things and brings up always shouting out different channels. Mangini's doing
Yeah.
the same thing. A lot of the larger channels are do that. And I think it really just gives people a boost, and also, lets other folks know about these new channels that are coming up. And, now I'm trying to do a little bit of that too. When I see like a newer channel that I haven't seen before, shout them out and try and recommend them.
Yeah, it's one thing I want to talk about maybe eventually at the end of this meet call is other people maybe that maybe people don't know, like other newer channels you've seen, you found, or maybe we all do know who they are, but hey, why not shout them out one more time? We'll put a link in the comments, and all that little bit may help get them out there and give them more confidence to keep going on their channel too and posting videos.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. A
So
lot of great ones.
yeah. Well, you mentioned about starting early on collecting. Have you always, sounds like maybe always been a Dodgers fan?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, LA. This is my 1988 Dodgers champions poster from when I was a kid.
Very nice.
Yeah, I was a Dodger fan growing up. Grew up in LA, listening to Vin Scully and also Don Drysdale as an announcer, and others like Ross Porter and Jerry Puckett. Yeah, and then I got my, there was some national television with Game of the Week and that kind of stuff. But yeah, so grew up always been a Dodger fan. Did not always just focus on Dodger card collecting. That's a relatively new focus. I did player runs when I was a kid, and um, I I bought a lot of cards and I sold a lot of cards. I actually was like kind of like a mini dealer, I guess you could say, when I was in elementary and junior high school.
Nice.
A couple of friends and my brother started a little baseball card club. Here, still have a receipt from it. Schlossberg Dan's
Ouch.
Baseball Card Club,
That's
and
official. Look at that printout. Look
it
at
was
that.
official. It was official. We set up at like smaller shows, and we
Yeah.
bought a lot of modern cards, and then we sold them. And basically, what I did with, and I also did it with my personal collection, and I sold a lot of the newer cards. And at the time, I was always drawn to like older things and the vintage cards. So
Yeah.
I when I was in elementary and junior high school, I completed a Don Drysdale player run.
Hmm.
I did Pete Rose, except for like 3 cards, including his rookie, which I don't have. Fergie Jenkins, I collected. Gaylord Perry. Just got into these players. Don't really know how I got into each of them, but
Yeah.
always was into vintage. And also I liked the experience of like buying and selling and like kind of doing that, and seeing what I could do with the cards that I had.
That's neat. Yeah. It's funny you kind of spanned outside of the Dodgers too. And those were, big names back in the 70s and 80s and Hall of Fame players, obviously, too. But then you kind of focused more in on the Dodgers recently, it sounds like, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Tony, you probably talked about this before, but just out of curiosity, did you collected when you were growing up too? And then did
I
you?
did. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. No, I did collect. So I began, I probably got one of these Scholastic Book Fair Start Your Football Card Collection things back in probably second grade.
Uh-huh.
A few cards in there, mostly football. I was mostly into football back in the 80s. So,
Yeah.
and for me, it was mostly I see a card, there's a
Hmm.
set, there's a checklist. I've got to
Sure.
complete the set. It's like it
Yeah.
was like a to-do list or a checklist. Literally, it was, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah. Yeah.
mark them off with red, blue, and black ink, go to the card store, buy packs, buy singles, mark them off. And for me, it was going in the Beckett, seeing what I was missing, which ones are pricey or not, and really more a set collector. I still kind of more or less am at a intrinsic type level, but
Hmm.
always liking the sets. What can I complete? How many cards is it? And having that kind of way to compare what I'm up against. Am I done? Am I almost done? How many more do I have left? And that's was my main focus growing up in football mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. I do like the set completion. Aspect. One of the big things I completed, one of my big hobby goals I started when I was in junior high, was the 1958 top set, and I completed it like 2 years ago or during the
Wow.
pandemic,
Yeah.
which like felt great because I've been adding into it slowly over time, and then I was like, I'm just going to finish it. But now I have that experience with Dodger team sets. So I'm not collecting like a full set, but I'm like working on the team set checklist for different years and stuff like that. It's a nice kind of fun to do.
Yeah, you get to see all the designs from all the sets that had Dodgers in them, which they all did. So you don't have the
Yeah.
whole massive elephant of trying to collect 700 cards of some massive expensive set, but you got the 20 or so Dodgers probably that are in that
Right.
focus on them. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no. So with current players right now, I guess, or with the current collection right now, you've got Dodgers in your focus. Are there cards you're trying to, like big ones you're trying to go after now, or big holes you're trying to fill in your collection that you're trying to look at?
Yeah, so I mean, the way I collect basically is I have I'm my big goal. I want to get every Dodger card ever produced. Okay,
Perfect. There you go.
that's
Yeah.
a goal I will never attain, but you got to have the big goal. You got to throw it out there.
Yeah.
I will never attain this because there's too many of them. Also just vintage cards. I'm not going to go for all the modern ones, at least not
Okay.
yet. But
Yeah.
there's too many of them out there on there. But also, price. I'm not the kind of person who's going to spend like thousands of dollars on a card. And there's some cards that are just in that range.
Yeah.
But in terms of what, and we can talk more about that too if you want at some point. But
Mhm.
the most valuable card in my collection, I don't think I've never spent more than $1,000 or more on a card. So,
Mhm.
but I've got several focuses in my collection. One is team sets. Um, I am trying to get all the Dodger team sets. So I just recently completed my run of 70s team sets. So I've got all the tops from the 70s. I'm missing 18 cards from the 60s,
Okay.
which isn't that many, but two of them are the Pete Rose rookie card, which has Ken McMullen, a Dodger on it,
Oh,
and
no.
the Bob Uecker rookie card, which also has a Dodger on it. So those are two bigger ones that I still need to get.
Yeah.
And then I'm going back to the 50s, etc. Then I've got some players that I focus more on. Like I'm pretty close to completing the Duke Snyder player run. I'll just show a couple of cards while we're here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, please do. Yeah.
Here's my
Oh,
Duke
very good.
Snyder rookie card, which I picked up in the last 6 months. Um,
What year is that again?
this
Sorry,
is this is 1949 Bowman.
I'm not as good with the baseball years. I don't have them as memorized as the football ones I do.
Yeah, I don't know anything about football, so you would definitely have me there. But
Yeah.
yeah, 49 Bowman.
A lot of
This
their
is a
input, Duke
this
Sniper, yeah.
this is a great year because there weren't a lot of cards. There's a lot of rookie cards in this year. So you've
Yeah.
got the Jackie Robinson, you've got Roy Campanella, you've got Duke Snyder, you've got Carl Furillo, you've got a beautiful Pee Wee Reese card. There's just a Gil Hodges rookie card. So this is a lot. It's a great year.
Yeah.
I also like pre-war, and I've gone pretty deep into a couple players. One player that people who watch my channel know I collect pretty heavily is Zach Wheat. This is the 1915 Cracker Jack for Zach Wheat.
Wow, that's pretty. That's a pretty card.
And that's the little image for my channel that I took a picture of
Yes.
it and used that
Yeah,
one.
there we go. Cool. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then I'll just show recent pickup,
Yeah.
which is this enormous card, which is Sporting News supplement from I think they're like 1909 to 1912 or 1913.
Okay.
But these are like paper thin. Anyway, that's another one. But I like it's the same image if you.
It is, yeah.
So.
Where would that bigger one have come? Like, what would that have come in to have gotten to a
I
collector?
think it's a magazine supplement, like inside of a magazine.
Okay, makes sense.
I think. Yeah. So anyway, I have the focus on, and I like to get into the pre-war. Like as I mentioned, I like kind of like to try and get different kinds of sets. There's so many sets from back then.
Yeah.
And there's just so much variety. I'm still learning a lot. I don't know. I'm not an expert on all this stuff, but like I got this one recently, this Burley Grimes Hall of Fame pitcher, the last pitcher to throw a legal spitball was Burley Grimes. But this is a picture of him, Oxford confectionery card, as a batter, which I found just really interesting.
Yeah, look at that picture. That's a great one there.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. So those are like kind of the Dodger things I collect. And then I have a few other little like kind of side projects, I guess. One side project is I'm trying to complete the Curt Flood player run by Labor Day. Of course, Curt Flood, such a important role in our current baseball structure because his holding out against the reserve clause helped pave the way to free agency. And he took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, suffered a lot as a result of it. So I've always really admired Curt Flood. And so I'm working on a player run of his. And I thought, I'll try and finish it. I thought it's appropriate to try and finish it by Labor Day. So I got a couple of those Curt Floods that I think I need like 5 more cards. But, his cards are not very expensive, really.
He's not in the Hall of Fame, right?
No, he's not in the Hall of Fame. He should be. And there's a very strong movement of baseball fans who say that we should flood the hall.
That's nice looking. Yeah, I like
and
that.
Get him into the Hall of Fame. I feel for his contributions to the game, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
When was his rookie card? Was it late 50s?
1958. I forgot to pull that one. It's part of my set. But I do have his 59 here, which is his second year card.
I love the 59s with the look. Yeah, kind of a peephole kind of look through.
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's,
so that's another project. And then the other kind of, I guess, the last project that I have, sort of like long-term project that I sort of work on from time to time. As a Jewish kid growing up, there were two people I heard a lot about. One was Sandy Koufax,
mm,
which he's a big guy that I collect.
oh,
I think that's
wow. That's
his
a nice looking card.
1955 Topps rookie
Yeah.
card.
Good color on that. Hmm.
Yeah, I like this one a lot. Um, and the other guy was Hank Greenberg, who Hall of Fame hitter for the Tigers, except for 1 year, I think. Anyway, so I have a number of Hank Greenberg cards that I pick up maybe like one a year or something like that. It's not like a
Yeah.
big focus, but I got this one, which is his rookie. Um,
It's the rookie. Okay.
yeah,
Very
1934 Gaudi. And then, I've got, several of them. I really like this one. This one is a lesser expensive one, because it's not him on a solo card. But this is the 4-in-1 Gaudi card.
Is that
Anyway,
35 or 30?
yeah, 35, 35.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a 35 with four Cubs, and Burley Grimes is on the Cubs
Oh,
version,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
35, 34. So, yeah, we have
So,
that connection with that player in common.
so do you team collect the Cubs?
Yeah, I just started getting more into. So the thing is, I want to buy everything. I'm kind of like you. I want to buy it all, but
Hmm.
I know I can't do that.
Yeah,
I want to kind of give my brain focus on a tinier piece of the collecting pie here. So, like growing up, it was like whatever car was in the Beckett, I want to buy. I want to buy all the football, all the baseball, but then
sure.
I couldn't keep up with the whole thing. So for me, it's like, how do I focus myself to enjoy what I want, but kind of what can I collect that's going to give me some sort of intrinsic connection to something I like, a team I like. So the Cubs I like. And I never once lived in Chicago. People ask me, "You must have been in Chicago.
Right.
Name Tony. You're Italian." No, no, none, nothing, nothing else. It's all not true. But when my family first got cable, I was in sixth grade, seventh grade, and WGN was on cable.
Right.
That before, I'm like, oh, there's baseball on TV. Never had that before. Growing up in Arizona, we had no Diamondbacks at that point. Didn't care about baseball. But the Cubs are showing every day, all throughout summer, all their
Sure.
day games. I'm at school, just fun out at school, just watching on the couch. I've got to watch the Cubs. Harry Carey, Ryan Sandberg, Andre Dawson, Sean Dunston. They just became my team, and not because they won a lot, because they did not win a lot in the 1990s.
Right.
But love guys like Greg Maddux and all those guys who went on to, of course, win championships with NL championships and others with the Braves there. So for me, it was just kind of the lore of this old established team. They're on WGN. You got the brick wall in the outfield,
Totally.
and again, didn't have a lot of history of winning like the Yankees did, but had some cool players and just the nostalgia around Wrigley Field. And so I tried to do more of that when I can't buy it all, which I know I can't. How do I focus on the teams I liked watching growing up and going back in time to golden era Cubs and going back to even beyond that a little bit. I'm dipping my toe slowly into the pre-war stuff, not quite all the way in it yet, but have a few purchases like that 35 4-in-1 with the four Cubs on it.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
For sure.
And they
I
won the
for,
series right a couple years ago too. And was it 17 or 18? I guess it was. They won. So that was a cool memory seeing them win. I remember the game was at 98 or 97 when was it Moises Alou was like trying to catch the ball and the fan like interfered with him on the side of the Wrigley Field. And that was a whole big hubbub of things too. But the 90s were more like a 50-50 team, win some, lose some, but had some good players I liked watching growing up.
Yeah, my knowledge of baseball sort of like dropped off. So I didn't really follow baseball quite as much during the like pretty much during my like mid 20s to like late 30s. I sort of like followed it, but like much more loosely
Yeah.
than I do now or than I did when I was a kid.
I'll be honest, I don't know anybody really on the Cubs now. I probably shouldn't say that, but I know like the vintage people, the people I used to
Right.
kind of like compartmentalize my collecting to like that stuff I kind of saw and remembered, and people I never saw 100 years ago because they're kind of cool to collect and learn about them as people and what they did, and people throwing spitballs in the 1930s or 1920s, and just like random facts that kind of just start interesting to me learning more about now as a 47-year-old person. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, there's one other little collection that I have that's
Yeah.
kind of it's from when I was a kid, and I sort of like add to it a little bit from time to time, and
Yeah.
that is players with with interesting last names.
A lot of those I know.
I
Yeah.
sorted out my cards when I was a kid, and I categorized them. I had players with colors in their last name, players with professions in their last name, players with foods, different kind of things. So, here, for example, are my colors. I've got green.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. We've got red,
Yep, that's true.
rose. I'll just give the colors as
There's a lot more I would have thought. Yeah, that's cool.
gray,
Hmm.
brown,
Need a
blue,
purple somewhere. Yeah, no, blue for sure. Yeah.
black.
Yep.
Now, blue, black, and white were all in the Royals at the same time.
Amazing. Yeah, and
So
blue.
they had a
with their
very colorful team.
Yeah.
Okay, I had colors, and then I also had people with body parts in their name. Beard.
Okay.
We'll
Yeah.
just go quickly on this. Heart.
Yep.
Hands.
Yep.
Foot. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of people named Dick. We don't need to talk about them.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that. Richard.
Family show. But then I will. I've told this story before, but I don't know if you've heard it because it's in an older video of mine.
Yeah.
But my uncle knew I had this collection. Okay, and in 1988, I told him this. I said, I'd asked him which player has the most body parts in their name, and do you know?
I don't know. No.
Well, the answer is Tony Armass. All right. So he used that trivia question, and in 1988 he called up a radio station, and they were having a trivia contest, and if you were able to stump the host, they gave you 2 tickets to Game 1 of the 1988 World Series.
Wow.
And he used my trivia question, and he won. But he didn't give me the ticket. Wow. He didn't take me, and he didn't tell me about it until 15 years later. He took his father-in-law. But of course, that was the Kirk Gibson. Wow. That was the Kirk Gibson home run off Dennis Eckersley.
Oh my gosh.
But then later at my kid's bar mitzvah, he gives me an envelope. He said, "I got you a special." Cause I always give him crap about not taking me that game. How could you not take me? I gave you the answer. What the hell's going on with that? Yeah. So anyway, he comes up to me. I got a special present for you, and he gave me the ticket stub from the ticket, and I was like kind of upset. I was like, "What are you trying to rub salt in my wounds?" And then I realized, oh wait, this is like a collectible piece, so I'll be happy to take it. And then at the last 2 nationals, 2 years ago, my brother got it signed by Kirk Gibson, and last year at the national, I got it signed by Dennis Eckersley, and it's my favorite piece in my collection. It's a signed Game 1 1988 World Series ticket stub.
Talk about a roundabout, full circle moment there, and then getting him signed all these years later. That's really cool. Yeah, that's a great story.
That's the best piece in my collection of anything.
Yeah, keep that somewhere you can see and look at it all the time.
Yeah, it sits in my display case.
No, I hadn't read the story before. That's great to share it again, because we all have those kind of probably stories at some point that kind of have a memory for us. They're so many years later, but they had this core memory making piece to them that, kind of either maybe helps us with our collecting or focuses on one thing or the other, or it's something we can come back to and then kind of revisit and kind of think about, fondly that we had that memory. So
yeah, I'm not a big tickets guy. That's the only ticket I own, in terms of a collectible ticket. Yeah. Do you do other memorabilia besides cards?
Mostly it's cards. I do have random things. I brought a few things here that I've kind of picked up every now and then that I'll buy. If I see them at a show, I'll have let's see. This is a Wrigley Field program from 1942.
Oh, that thing's cool.
So it's like during the war, again, you got for victory, buy, savings bonds, the cool kind of cub right there, 10 cents right there. So
that's awesome.
The nice beer advertisement on the back as well. So it kind of takes you back to, again, just maybe a simpler time. And during the war, they were advertising other things besides baseball, right? To help support the troops overseas. So I like those things, even things like that goes back to my Bears in Chicago collecting, Bears or Cubs. These are like media guides.
Oh,
that's on eBay, a couple bucks each. 1979 is this one. It has pictures of the players, things like that, their stats, early pictures of, guys like Walter Payton, Mike Ditka, things like that. Talks about the Bears' history and just, their upcoming schedule, some radio, advertising, things like that, which is kind of cool. So those things are kind of cheap to pick up. You see them in a show. They don't cost a lot. Just bring them back in your backpack. And I've got a run of some of those. I've got some other Cubs ones, some Bears ones. I've got like actual boxes, like the wax packs came in, like the card boxes,
Oh yeah.
that I've taken from old things I used to open up. I also collect unopened packs too. That's one of my bigger areas of collecting. Unopened
Oh
packs, rack packs, cello packs from the 80s or 90s when I collected a lot of. So having them sealed, all tied up, and it kind of takes me back to like what the local card shop looked like when I
yeah.
bought things, right, 40 years ago.
That's really cool. I have, I think like 3 or 4 boxes that are like partially opened from when I was a kid. I just saved them,
Yeah,
and the back because like we would be selling our cards at card shows, so we had some boxes and packs that we were selling,
yeah.
and I just like anyway I still have them here. And every once in a while, like some little kid will come over or something, I'll give him a pack to open.
Yeah, some of those in the 80s are like worth still 50 cents or a buck. They aren't that expensive. They made so many of them. You could buy them right now and rip them just for a $30 thrill for an
Yeah,
afternoon. Maybe
yeah.
find a Barry Bonds or somebody else that's worth a couple bucks, or just find some random commons with body parts in their name. Who knows, right? Or we do all types of cool stuff, right? With those cards, they're so cheap. So it's the memories that I enjoy trying to recreate, I guess, and kind of the scenery, the ambiance of all that.
Hmm.
And they aren't that expensive too, so it's nice to pick up some cheap stuff, net of the other maybe more expensive stuff we want to go after every now and then too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I guess in terms of buying things, you mentioned collecting your Dodgers cards, your runs, expensive, cheap ones, all in the middle. Do you prefer to buy cards? I mean, which way do you prefer? Have you been mostly buying these cards online, at stores and local card shops, things like that?
Yeah. So, uh, you know, I like to go to card shows. I don't go to a lot of them because there's not a lot of heavy vintage card shows near here. Like
Okay.
there's a show that sets up. Maybe there'll be like 10 vintage tables, which is great, but it's not like
Yeah.
the experience of that the good people have out in the East Coast where there's shows that are just like loaded with vintage. It seems like.
Yeah.
Um, I did get to go to the National the last 2 years. I'm not going to be going this year. Um, that's a great. I also went in 1987 when I was a kid because it was in LA or Southern
Oh,
California.
wish it was back on the West Coast again. Me too. That'd be nice.
Yeah, that would be great. I will be going to the West Coast Card Show, the Burbank Card Show, that happens and it's going to happen in August. So I
Okay.
don't know if you consider coming out there for that, but that's it's in Anaheim, I think,
I've heard
and
about it, but never
it's
been.
huge. It's huge, and it's a really good show.
Okay. Good to
So
know. Yeah.
anyway, I was thinking maybe we could figure out with some people organizing like a YouTube get together for people who are there because there will be a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe we could figure something like that out. But
I'll
anyway,
be in Chicago this year. I'm going to that one.
oh, that's
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah. So I buy some at shows. I, occasionally, I'll go to a card shop when I'm visiting my folks in LA. The same card shop that I went to when I was a kid is still in business, and it's been
Wow.
continually running.
Nice.
And there's only been 2 owners, like the current owners took it over from the prior owner. So I've gotten a few things there, but like the vast majority of my buying is online.
Yeah.
Um, I would say probably about 60-40 split between Facebook groups and eBay, mostly in Facebook groups, definitely. I also do a lot of selling in Facebook groups. One of my strategies for buying is I buy like big lots of cards.
Okay.
For example, I posted a video of it, but I recently bought a 1961 Topps partial set. Um, Great stuff. So I'm like selling through it. But when I do that, I can take out the Dodgers. I can upgrade my Dodgers for my
That's
collection.
yeah.
So this has been invaluable in building my team sets because if I buy a lot for like I don't know $600 of like one of the years in the 60s or something like that, I take out all the Dodger cards. Usually I can sell it for more. I can sell it for more than I bought it for. So have a little more extra to spend. And I've also filled up my team sets. So
That's a great idea. Hmm.
that's been really helpful in terms of a strategy around that. And then also in the Facebook groups, I've just found like a lot of good deals um, on cards, and also like just a lot of like different cards, kind of oddball stuff that I like. So I like the
Yeah,
Facebook groups, and then also you see stuff on eBay. eBay's still, and also I would just say I also do have started buying in auctions, in not auction, yeah, like auction houses, like Robert Edwards. I've gotten a bunch of stuff from there.
that's
So
cool. Yeah, no, Facebook is one thing I started buying and selling on probably a couple years ago on the football sites.
oh yeah,
Fell through a bunch of old. I'd collected a bunch of old vintage football sets. I wanted to move on from to do something else with that money, so I sold a
hmm
bunch on a vintage football site. Found the vintage baseball cards. I think the probably same one you're on probably 5 6 months ago too, with YouTube and being exposed more to
yeah,
baseball and players and types of cards. That's pretty active on that too. I'll buy a few here or there and see. There are some good deals, I think, for sure, graded or raw. I mean, there's some like that's only $2. Yeah, why not for a $1.50 shipping? Why not get that plus this plus a few other cards? And it's a good way to find stuff versus eBay having some of those higher fees sometimes, and
yeah.
you got to pay the other fees that go to the seller too. That in some cases too. So yeah, no, it's been a good way to find
Yeah, I've
stuff.
also learned a lot about like how to, kind of effectively sell things on Facebook, how to list them, how to take good pictures of them, how to, describe them, how to get people to pay attention to them. So, it's been a learning process, but it's like kind of like a just a way to kind of be able to get these lots and add to my collection.
Yeah, I've never thought about that because I bought one little project I started a few weeks ago. I don't have any cards right here now to show up that. Well, I guess I have one here. I'll show a few here. One project I'm working on, it's a couple weeks old, is with 1971 Topps baseball. There's these cards that are called kind of the action poses or action shots.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's like a kind of a subset, quote unquote, of the set.
yeah.
It's
You're going for that, huh?
There's 52 of them. Yeah, I've got the Ryan, I've got the Bob Gibson, I need the Munson, but the other like 48 of them are all like random 50 cent dollar.
You got Brooks Robinson too, right? He's a good
You're
one.
right. Sorry, and Joe Morgan. I forgot about
Yeah,
those. Yeah, so those will come eventually, but I've got probably 42 of them, maybe the ones right now or so. But picked up these for like a buck, 50 cents each off that Facebook site from one of the
yeah,
sellers, and just like they're excellent. I don't need Nearman. I don't need tens. I don't want ones either. So it's kind of in the mid grade, and I love learning about just the backgrounds of the stadiums. You got the fans. Are they in Yankee Stadium or somewhere else? And just seeing kind of what happens behind the scenes and wondering where they were taken at, frankly, too. So it's kind of a cool little educational deep dive for me on at least that set. I'm also going to put together the 71 Topps Cubs set as well. I've got the Banks, the Williams, and the Santo, and all the other ones besides a few Jenkins, of course, too. They're all commoners. They're not,
yeah.
huge, pricey like Mantles out there in the Cubs. They didn't have those guys, but kind of a fun little distraction for not so much versus other maybe more pricey things I'd like to go after
Yeah, it's
eventually.
it's nice not to be a Yankee collector.
Yeah, I know the Cubs have their struggles, and I mean back in 1908 and '09, those T206s are pretty pricey for the
Oh
Cubs, and
yeah,
the Dodgers too back in the day. But from like I mean Ernie Banks, of course, is there too. But the Cubs had a lot of cheap, easy to acquire commons and semi stars in
yeah.
those.
I was just checking my 71s. The Dodgers don't have a single person with an action pose.
It's funny, yeah, they don't have the Cubs don't either. So the Cubs team set, the Action Post team sets do not overlap.
Right.
So if you get those two together, it's like 85 or 88 cards. So I'm like, that's a lot of cards, but I like the black borders. I like the action. I like just the kind of different color name of the teams at the top there, the lowercase names, lowercase, like Nolan Ryan's lowercase n, lowercase r. It's kind of like a
Right.
weird kind of way to do things. So it's kind of appealing like that to me. But yeah, I'm a little bit into it. They're not too expensive, and it kind of keeps me with a little side distraction too while I go down other pursuits. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
in terms of like the auctions, I've done some of that too. Maybe I bought a couple off REA, like single cards here or there. Some of it can get kind of pricey with people bidding, and you got the 19 or 20% fees they add on to, right? And then the shipping and the tax. So I've tried to not get too caught up in that, but sometimes I bought a few and they've been good cards. It just that add that kind of multiplier to get what you're going to eventually pay, so you're not surprised by it. I've had to learn to do that too.
Yeah. I've basically like when I buy stuff, I don't even on the auction like the like on REA for example. Like I don't really even look at cards that I think I can get easily in other places. Like
That's smart.
like golden era. Like I like base tops cards. Like
Yeah,
because like what you said with the 20% and then like the I just eh,
it adds
probably I
up.
could get some good deals, but I just don't look at it. But what I do look for is kind of more rare stuff that I wouldn't be able to find other places, and then I kind of go for it. Like my last REA, I went for I think like 3 or 4 cards, and there was one I ended up getting, which was a 1921 exhibit card,
Okay.
which they're kind of hard to find. So I was happy to get it, and I thought the price was competitive. So
In hindsight, that makes total sense. Like seeing a 1975, whatever, you could buy that on eBay, Facebook, your local card shop, the National, the Burbank show, and maybe you find a good deal in person with cash. You strike a deal, you get it, and it's in person, right? You kind of see it, touch it, angle the card. What's up with the grade versus the price and all that. But auctions, yeah, maybe for the rare stuff, that's probably wise words right there.
well, I also only have like limited bandwidth to like examine stuff within these auctions. Like I don't have like hours and hours to sift through every single card, and so
Yeah,
I'll just go for like the few that I want to go for, and then pay attention to those.
yeah, well, very good. Well, I know we're coming up on about 40 minutes. I want to make sure I'm respectful of your time and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
where we're at right now. But anything I need to talk about the Burbank show coming up, collecting Dodgers, of course. Is there a card you're trying to maybe one card you're trying to hoping to find sooner than any other card coming up, or is kind of whatever comes up that strikes your interest you would?
Well, I will say the card that I've been going for the longest that I really, really want to find, and this is really hard to find in any kind of decent condition, is the 1914 Cracker Jack for Zach Wheat, and that's a really tough one. Uh, they're very expensive. I mean, I would need one in like an authentic or a one, and yeah, just like I'll take a beat up version, you know. But that's one that's been on my list for like since I was looking for a last national. You know, I saw a couple versions, but they were like I thought super expensive. I wasn't willing to pay what they were charging. So that's one. And then the other one I'm looking for, which I actually have more expectation I'm going to get, is the T207. That's the brown background cards
Okay.
of Zach Wheat. That's one of the ones I need for my. That's one guy I'm really collect heavily, and that's a card that I need for the run of his.
Yeah, I'm slowly trying to learn more about the pre-war vintage baseball. I see them in, Beckett's and all the auctions, but no, there's so much nuance behind how rare they are, when they were made, and were they issued in magazines or gum or
Yeah,
candy and ice cream, things like that. So is 1914 more rare than 15, it sounds
yeah.
like.
So what happened with the Cracker Jacks is the
Yeah.
1914s came in the Cracker Jack boxes only.
Oh, okay.
The 1915s you could get them in the Cracker Jack boxes, or you could write in for them. So they're much more of them were preserved and
Mm,
in better condition. So if you see like the 1914 Cracker Jacks, I've got one 1914 Cracker Jack, which I got at the National. But if you, they're just harder to find, and then they're harder to find in a nice condition.
that makes total sense being with the caramel, the food in there shaking around, kids probably ripping up
Right,
stuff.
right. You
And
know, sticky fingers and all.
yeah, it kind of adds some patina or ambiance, I suppose, but then also can be
Yeah.
pricey. Put a
No, yeah,
quarter.
but I'd be happy to take one in an authentic or
Yeah.
beat up one or something. So
Well, at that point, you're almost like, yeah, there's probably 1.9 out there somewhere, maybe, but it's like, who knows? That's billions of dollars, right? But they're going to be in that A1, 2 grade because they're 810 years old or something right now, right?
right,
So, and kids would have looked at them and not wanted to keep them for their great grandkids to sell on eBay, 100
yeah,
years later. So it kind of adds to the story and makes them probably even more rare, like you said. So that's a cool background. Okay, I didn't know that. Nice.
yeah.
So about Zach Wheat, I didn't know who he was before I started looking more at vintage baseball. Is there like one or two stats or something about him you'd like to kind of share? Like what
Sure.
makes him special, maybe?
Yeah, really briefly, the why I started
Yeah.
collecting him. You know, I was like collecting Dodger cards, and then I looked at, I was like looking at the Dodger records, all-time Dodger records, and he has the all-time Dodger records in like most offensive categories. He's
Hmm.
got the most hits, the most singles, doubles, triples, total bases. And I looked more into him. He was really like the Dodgers' first superstar. So that's sort of why I kind of got into collecting him.
Yeah,
Um,
that's great.
yeah, he was not like the top of the top Hall of Famer, but because he's got these records, and especially in this day and age, it's going to take a lot to break any of them. He's
Hmm.
got like 2,800 hits. Uh, the Dodgers have never had a 3,000 hit person.
Interesting. I didn't
Well,
know
they've
that.
had people who had 3,000 hits, but not on the Dodgers. Like they'd be
Yeah.
like Eddie Murray, for example, played on the Dodgers for like a year or something like that. But
Okay.
but that's not. There's nobody's gotten 3,000 hits while on the Dodgers. So it'll take somebody who's
Wow.
a great hitter and who
Yeah.
stays with the Dodgers for the whole career. Kind of
Huh.
like Kershaw with the 3,000 strikeouts, but we need a hitting equivalent of him. Um,
I didn't know that's. You think of how long the Dodgers have been around as a franchise, but no one's quote unquote stuck around to have the 3,000 hits that long. It takes a lot to get on one team, obviously, too. But
they've had a lot. They also have nobody who's had 500 home runs.
okay,
They've had a lot of really good players who didn't have the longevity or went to other teams,
fair
or
enough.
on other teams. But like the big guys like Snyder and people like that, they just didn't have the same longevity to get to 500. So
Yeah, great Dodgers. They won titles and were great. People who know them in Brooklyn and LA, like they were great, but just didn't have that. Yeah, 3,000 hits is a long time.
yep.
And home runs is a long time to build that number up over so many years. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, this is great. I'm learning a lot more about the Dodgers than I ever thought I'd want to know. This is wonderful.
Maybe more than you want to know.
It's great. Cracker Jacks and Dodgers and ball players with body parts in their names. I'm just like, this is like the best afternoon. This is great. So, I guess we wrap up. One more thing I was going to ask you, if maybe you don't have them offhand, we can share them in the comments later. But any 1, 2, 3 YouTube channels you think that are kind of newer, or you want to shout out, are ones that you like watching? Maybe they just joined.
I mean,
yeah.
Sure. A couple channels I'll just say that I've really learned a lot from and I really enjoy. I mean, there's so many channels I enjoy, but a couple that I really learn a lot from
Don't forget about them too. Yeah.
is I really like value vintage cards.
Yep.
Yeah, Aaron does a great job at showing a wide diversity. I feel like I have a similar collecting sensibility, but a much smaller, more modest collection like than he's able to amass, which his
I can
collection is
see
just
that.
super
Yeah.
impressive. And then of course I also really like Mangini because he shows again like just such a wide diversity of cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are two of my really ones that I love watching, although there are many I love watching. A couple of newer channels that I just want to mention.
Yeah.
One of them is Steve's Hobbies. I don't know how many. I think he has in double digit subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
Encourage people to check him out. He's a Dodgers and a Mariners fan. He
Okay.
collects just a range of stuff. He recently showed off I think a Don Sutton run. He's got a lot of nice cards, and he's anyway, give him a channel a little attention.
That's great.
And I like J Average Cards, another newer channel I'll mention, and Rusty's Vintage Cards. But I don't want to leave anyone out. There's so many channels I like, but those are just some that come off the top of my head right now.
It's hard because there may be someone out there who has like 12 subscribers. You're like, I'd love to know about them. I don't know who they are. I don't know them yet to kind of shout them out. So it's like chicken and the egg type of thing almost. But again, hopefully by doing this, we can give a few more people a few more clicks and likes out there, right? So that's good too. But no, those are great. I will put those in the comments. And yeah, I think Aaron, that makes a lot of sense. Given I just didn't know all these things even existed, like random candy, ice cream, newspaper, like you're saying. I had no idea this. I just knew Beckett's would show Tops and Bowman and Fleer, right, from Golden Era. That's all I knew ever existed. But there were things well beyond in my grandparents' day that had cards or card pictures. So it's kind of cool to learn about this stuff as well.
Yeah, well, that's been one of the best things about YouTube is like I've learned so much about just like the diversity of cards. I didn't have there's still so much I don't know. So I'm always like learning about different things. A lot of it from watching, people's channels who just have a greater more extensive collection, been collecting longer or more deeply than me. And so it's kind of cool to learn about all this stuff.
Excellent. Well, why don't we wrap it up there? Thank you, Mark, for the time. I love learning more about your collection and, like I said, Cracker Jacks and Dodgers. And look forward to maybe coming out to the Burbank show maybe at some point too. That's just a 6-hour drive away for me, so that sounds fun.
Not too far. You should come out.
I know, it's always nice by the beach, right?
Great talking with you, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Have a good afternoon. We'll see you.
Cheers. Bye.
Yep. Bye.